Hey guys, BJ the Brave here, back with another Tau deck guide today. So most of you probably already seen, I released my first kind of constructed competitive deck guide, which was the Shadowsun deck a few days ago, and it was really built around this idea from the beginner decks, which is really around battle suits, and really kind of maximizing the synergy of the Montcar, right? Like really maximizing the sort of the flexibility and maneuverability and the power of the crisis suits. And I've really been enjoying this archetype. It does largely ignore some of the other mechanics in the Tau faction. So from what I've sort of seen looking around the internet and Discord, a lot of people are sort of still very mixing and mashing and playing a bit of everything at the minute. But I really think that the most refined decks will be much more deliberate in the deck building, and that's what I've tried to do with the Battlesuits deck. So I've refined that Shadowsun, especially as I've gained a few extra cards, and I've also moved on to the Aun'Va version, which is what I'm bringing you today. So yeah, it's a very similar skeleton, but there are a few significant changes both to the cards and also the way that we play it, given that we've got different heroes. So what I'm going to do is walk through the deck, what the win cons are, how we're playing it, kind of to do a card by card to explain why it's in the deck. I'm going to talk about the differences between this and the Shadowsun build. I'm going to talk about the defense and the offense stratagems a little bit. I'm going to look at some key combos that I've learned from playing the deck and starting to get to grips, and talk about the mulligan. And then we're going to look at some replays, some really good games that I think really bring it to life, and we might play a live game. Oh, we'll see. So yeah, so let's talk about the deck. So as I say, what we're trying to do with this deck is fight for board control. It really is about putting down units, controlling the board until we reach a point where we can basically lethal. Now, one of the main differences between this and the Shadowsun is this actually has much greater reach in ending the game, and that's because Aun'Va has the Serene Unifier, and the Serene Unifier basically unlocks 3 mini spells, if you like, for us. One is to give shield to a unit, one is to give 1 armor to all units on our side, and another is to give +2 range attack to all troops on our side. Now that last one, the +2, is you'll only ever use it once in the game, but that is the finisher. That is what gives the deck this kind of extra range, if you like, that the Shadowsun deck doesn't really have. So yeah, so that's basically how we win the game, or what our kind of win cons are, if you like. Now let's go through the cards and talk about why they're in there. So the first one we've got is the Carrion Tactics. This was in the Shadowsun build, it stays in this build. This card is very, very good. It is incredibly cheap for what it does, giving +2 mark light to all troops, including stealth troops, and will stick until it's used. And you know, sometimes you just use it by attacking with your Warlord, killing a 4 health creature, for example. Sometimes you do it when you just need, you want to combo it with like a flanker, like a Vespid, for example. But often you want to use it for the combo, which is with the Relentless Fusillade, which basically gives you a 4 AoE spell. But don't be greedy, like, you know, that is not the only time to use this. You have to think about it, and you have to think about like exceptions to that. Obviously that is very powerful. Technological Supremacy, again, brilliant with the suits. Nothing's changed here from the Shadowsun deck. It's an absolute must. You know, often trading and then going back up to full health and then an extra +3 health is like this is almost game winning sometimes. It's super powerful. I quite like to target the stealth battle suit as well, because it puts a lot of pressure on our opponent. Then we have the Pulse Onslaught. Now, I've actually got 2 copies of this. I think that, you know, one of the weaknesses with Aun'Va over Shadowsun, for example, is Shadowsun does much better in the early game, because Shadowsun can essentially either put a Markalite or just go up to 3 ranged attack himself. And if you can do 3 damage from your Warlord as opposed to 2, that really makes a difference. That really, you know, dealing with 3 health units as opposed to only 2 makes your early game so much stronger. And Aun'Va doesn't have that, and that's why I think having the extra pulse onslaught is important. And I'll often keep this in the mulligan, depending who you're playing, what you're playing against. But I do think that 2 of these is really good. And as we already mentioned earlier, Aun'Va has really good reach, so you can have a burn turn, if you like, where you can just reduce the enemy's health from like 20 health, and pulse onslaughts can contribute to that burn turn as well. So I think 2 of them is correct in the Aun'Va deck. I don't feel like they're as necessary, if necessary at all, in the Shadowsun deck. I'm currently only 1 in the Shadowsun, but I'm testing it, and I may end up dropping it from the Shadowsun version. But I think in Aun'Va it's essential. Now the stealth drones are just so powerful. They're just so well designed. Dropping the stealth drone sometimes with Aun'Va on turn 2, and sometimes even just hoping you draw into a 3-drop. And there's various ways we can do that, because then the stealth drone is stealth, and then the next turn you drop something next to it, and then it says at the end of the turn give stealth to adjacent units. So now I really understand that wording, and it works so beautifully and it synergizes so well. But the other cool thing with Aun'Va is that in that next turn that you often end up playing stealth drone and the 1-drop spell to give +1 health, so you can actually heal the stealth drone, which puts it out of range of a lot of like AoE stuff like Storm Raven, for example. It's very, you've got to be careful with the stealth drone in this deck a little bit, because we have got quite a few Vanguard units, and you don't want to put the Vanguard unit into stealth, right? Because then it's not Vanguarding anymore, it's not frontlining. Good targets for the stealth drone are obviously things like Long Strike after he's coming, or the Riptides, but also things like not Enforcer, the Broadside Battlesuit's a good target. Crisis Battlesuit's a good target, and sometimes even things like a Stingwing after that's come on. We do run 2 Crisis Suits. Now again, what I've just said about the early game, there is a part of me that would like to drop the Crisis Battlesuit, just 1 of them, because what I'm really refining and really trying to maximize my chances with is this next card, which is the Dynamic Offensive, which is the kind of key card in the deck, I think, because we're basing and building the deck around this card quite a lot. So drawing 2 troops from your deck, and if they're battlesuits, give them flank. I'm not sure like I want to draw a Crisis Suit. It's not bad. It's a 4, you know, it's a 4 ranged attack flanker. If you get that, it's not bad. But when you look at the other cards on the Dynamic Offensive that we can pull from this, they either have a shield or they have long range, and that is absolutely broken with flank. Like, it is so powerful. And so what we're trying to do is build the deck in a way that kind of guarantees us at least 1 from the 2 cards that it pulls, 1 of those. But Crisis Battlesuit dropping it on 3 is very, very good, especially in an Aun'Va deck where you have a weak, can sometimes have a weak early game, and that's the main reason why I'm still keeping 2 at the minute. The Emergency Dispensation is just a super flexible card. We can play it on 3 and look for the Crisis Battlesuits or the Vespid Stingwings. We can play it on 4 and then look for a 4-drop, because we know we could then play that for 1 energy, so things like the Stealth Battlesuits, for example, or the Crisis Bodyguard, or we can play it on turn 5 and look for 5 drops, etc, etc. So it's really about like thinking about, you know, like, or even turn 5 and playing a Riptide. It's like thinking about what turn is it and what are we looking to draw. Another thing about the Dynamic Offensive, not Dynamic Offensive, the Emergency Dispensation, is that it can draw the Honoured Ethereal. So there are turns where you really need a Vanguard, and what that allows us to do, like, we could be deeper in the game, we could play that, and we could really dig for the Honoured Ethereal. And that's the main reason why Honoured Ethereal one of the main reasons why I haven't dropped Honored Ethereal for this card, for the greater good, is this is cheaper, right? And I do want to test this card in this deck. I actually think it will be really good. So definitely this is probably the next card I want to test, really. But what you can't do with that card is you can't draw into it, whereas the Honored Ethereal can be drawn into from the emergency dispensation, because it says choose a troop in your deck. So that kind of like when you just need that emergency vanguard, I find that combo to be very good. We do run the Stingwings, they're very good in this deck. They can also get quite out of hand. The armor, combine that with the health buffs. So they don't have the Markerlight buff that Shadowsun had, so they're not as good in terms of what they can take out, but they're more survivable in this deck because you can actually heal with Aun'Va, and I've actually had Vespid Stingwings go up to like 5 health at times, so yeah, really annoying for your opponent. And again, early removal is really critical. Then we get into the fun part of the game, right? So we've got the Crisis Bodyguards. Now, if it wasn't for the flanking ability of this unit, like again, you've always got to think about the suits that you put in relation to the dynamic offensive. If it wasn't for the flanking ability of this, I would possibly drop one of them, maybe even 2, but certainly I think I would drop one of them. But I can't bring myself to drop them when their flanking ability is so outstanding and out of this world. For 4 energy, guys, we get a 5 ranged unit that's got shield. I mean, that is absolutely insane coming on as a flanker. So we do run 2. We do run the Honored Ethereal still. Now, obviously, this isn't a crisis suit. This isn't a battle suit, and I think any unit, right, any troop that isn't a battle suit has to really be pulling its weight. It has to really be making a difference to the deck. Otherwise, don't run it. And honestly, this card has been fantastic. I can't tell you how many times it's like helped me win a game or stop me losing a game, and even just dropping it on 4 again with that early curve not being great, it's a powerful 4 drop. So it's still in the deck. I'm still finding it to be really good. You can drop it next to the Stingwings after you've played those, just to create a bit of a speed bump. You can drop it on the crisis suits. You can do a lot of annoying things. You can use it to play around enemy blast units, for example. There's just so many cool things you can do with it. And remember, it comes with shields as well, so it trades quite nicely. And dropping it on a Riptide obviously is insane. We already talked about this for the AoE. The Stealth Battlesuit is a real engine of the deck. It was in the Shadowsun, it's in this one as well. Playing this on 4 energy will basically ensure that it survives, and then on turn 5 you can play the Homing Beacon, which essentially gives you a 4 energy crisis suit, but one that has flank, and that is super powerful, because then you can use the 1 energy that's left with Aun'Va's ability, which can basically give both of those units. So if you play a stealth suit on one side, the Homing Beacon will automatically come out on the other side of Aun'Va, and positioning is actually quite important. That's one of the big differences to the Shadowsun, like always thinking about which unit do you want to put next to Aun'Va, because they're the ones that will gain the health buff, is actually quite important. And here you end up with that on 5 health, and then the Battlesuit on 5 health flying as well. Really powerful turn 4 and 5. Also, the Stealth Battlesuit, once it then attacks, is a really good target for the Supremacy, right? Because then your opponent's like, oh my god, this guy's going to get flanked every turn. And don't be surprised if they end up using hard removal or something that they were hoping to use on something bigger, which then clears the way for the next cards we're going to talk about. So we do then run the Broadside Battlesuit, and the main reason is it's got long range. So again, thinking about the flanking capability from Dynamic Offensive, this thing coming on with flank for 5 energy and long range is insanely powerful, and just, again, pretty game winning. We got 2 of those. We're not too worried about getting the missile drones. Often it's that flank that we're looking for, but obviously it does scale into the later game nicely if you can play those out as well. Now, I currently run a Valued Sacrifice. This is a test, and it is something that could be dropped. I'll tell you how I arrived at this though. First of all, the card's good, but as I've already banged on about in this video, it's so important not to put too many troops in your deck, and you don't want troops that are going to basically get drawn from your Dynamic Offensive that aren't suits. So value sacrifice is a way of getting troops that aren't troops, a bit like the Gretchen mod, right, in Orkz. So it just plays 3 drones, gives them Vanguard, it helps us stabilize. Vanguard's really important, and it can even do things like, you know, you drop a battlesuit, like a Riptide or something, and then you drop value sacrifice after the turn later, and they just can't get to this guy, and he just keeps surviving. So overall, I think the value sacrifice is like one I would advise you to test. It could be correct to run 2 of them, and potentially even drop like a crisis suit, but I would suggest at the minute I'm testing 1. It could even be correct that you don't need it, but I quite like it. Quite like that play around of getting troops on the board, but you're not actually putting troops in your deck. The Enforcer Battlesuit. Now this is the only battlesuit that, other than the crisis suits, as I've talked about the reason for those, but this is the only one really that we still keep it. Like, obviously if you get this with flank, it's still pretty good, right? It's still pretty good, but it doesn't have long range and it doesn't have a shield, so whatever it hits it will trade with, right? That's the big difference, that's the big drawback, but it's still amazing, right? We're still talking about a 6-drop flank of a 7. I mean, that's better than the Squig Buggy, right? However, the big deal with this guy is he's got the Vanguard, and the other thing I really like about the Enforcer is that his drones are cheaper. So this is a guy that I'll often want to play on like turn 7 or 8. I often want to get like 1 drone down, sometimes 2, but at least getting 1 is really good. We also have to remember that he buffs the range attacks. If you stick him next to your Lord now gets 3 range attack, and then the drone on the other side could end up getting 2 range attacks. So the battlesuit, the Enforcer battlesuit's really good. Really like it, and it gives us yet another Vanguard. Very difficult to get to us in this deck. Now we have got Long Strike now. We've got all the legendaries, so Long Strike does go in. There's no denying at this stage that as an 8-drop, this guy is absolutely fantastic. He's got the flank anyway. Obviously, you would say, well, BJ, what if you draw him off the dynamic offensive? Well, I just say good, because he's already got flank anyway. So essentially I look at this like, you know, another Riptide in a way. There is some pros and cons over the Riptide, and the Long Strike is better when the opponent's got multiple targets on the board. The Riptide's better if there's just 1 unit on the board. And why is that? Well, this guy can mark like 1 unit for 5, meaning that your Warlord can clear a 7 health unit. It's crazy, eh? And at the same time, he's then got long range, and he whacks something else for 7 himself, so that basically gets rid of 2 units on the turn he comes on. And last but not least, the Riptides. Guys, this is like, these are locked in, right? These are absolutely insane in this deck, and they are fantastic, and I've been so impressed with the Riptide. I really wrote this off as it's just a big heap of trash and it's never going to be played, and I was so wrong. The card's brilliant, right? Like, coming on with shield, even without flank, it's pretty good, and especially if you time it with other Vanguards and things like that, it can be a real problem. Your opponent, it's going to really cause your opponent like to have nightmares. Not going to show what to do. But guys, when this comes on with flank, it's got long range, it's got shield, it keeps putting shields on itself or something else. The shield generator says put it on a friendly battlesuit, so you can put it on another battlesuit, which is also another reason why you want to mainstream your battlesuits in this, so that works. Guys, I think the synergy in this deck is absolutely superb. So I've already said that a little bit about differences to Shadowsun, but one of the main differences is Shadowsun's just a little bit better in the early game. It's better at dealing with things like drones, for example. So if drones became the meta, you know, maybe Shadowsun's the better option there. And yeah, just overall dealing with those sort of cheap enemy flyers, it's just a bit more consistent and a bit safer. But Aun'Va has a higher power ceiling. So what I mean is Aun'Va's abilities to basically put armor, keep healing, and to put armor on units. It's not even just heal, by the way, it's give health. So to extend the baseline of a unit's health is just really, really good. And then of course having that finisher built in as well, where it can have the +2 I keep saying long range, but it's not long range, +2 range attack is superb. So Essentially, it gives them a lot of flexibility. It gives them value, because even if you get down to 2 or 3 cards, you can just start using these Aun'Va abilities. Whereas Shadowsun, if he runs out of cards, like, he just doesn't know what to do with his energy. So yeah, I really like the Aun'Va version. I think it's very, very powerful. It's just slightly less consistent, particularly in the early game, but it has a higher power ceiling. The other thing is Shadowsun, you'll see him in my updated deck that he actually runs a couple of the like he'll actually run some of the invocations, because obviously he ain't got access to them, whereas Aun'Va doesn't need to do that. You could definitely try running the other legendary that we just talked about, the Greater Good, if you got it. I haven't tested this card yet, but I actually think that this card would be good. This card is very much a tempo card. People compared it to the Ultramarine Humanity Shield, but I don't think that's the correct way to look at the card, because Humanity Shield just protects the Lord from dying and your opponent just clears off the board, whereas what this does is, you stick this on your Lord, and what it does, it's a tempo card, because it allows you to, it basically means you have a turn where your board can't be traded, unless your opponent's got like Will of Gork or something. So it is super good in a tempo deck, and I definitely want to test it, and I have a feeling that this might end up being in the final version, but I haven't tested it yet, because I only just got it. Okay, so the other key difference between Shadowsun and this deck is Markerlight. So Shadowsun leans into Markerlight a lot more, because he can put a Markerlight down every turn. So we run things like the Coordinated Destruction, or whatever it's called, the hard removal. We don't run any of that in this. So this deck is not as good with Markerlight, but it is more resilient to the offense card. So I think most of you will know, and I've already talked about it, but if you look in the Forge on level 4, anyone who wants to beat Tau, you should be playing with Tau and getting to level 4 on the Forge, because that unlocks Solar Eclipse, and then you go back to your decks, and then when you play against Tau, you play this every turn, and you're just going to completely shut Markerlight down. It's so broken. It's such a powerful anti-Tau offense card. It puts all of our offense cards to shame, and that's how you beat Tau. So you could say that the Aun'Va version deck that we're looking at the minute is a little bit more immune to that. Like, I've built this in a way where it doesn't rely on Markerlights at all, and even things like Carrion Tactics just gives Markerlight too. I don't need to target anyone, so that doesn't defend against this, which is really important. But if your opponent hasn't got that camouflage defense on, then Shadowsun's obviously way better at doing Markerlights. I do tend to go with the offense card that gives me +2. Oh, it doesn't show it like that, does it? +2. Here we go. Yeah, so I tend to go with this one, which gives me deal 2 damage to an enemy. That tends to be the one I like best. Just again, really helps you to kind of clear out in that early game, and just help with that little extra bit of ping and removal if you need it. Where are we? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we've talked about a lot of the combos as we've gone. I mean, we're going to jump into some games in a minute, so you'll see some of them there. In terms of the mulligan, it's a little bit difficult, because it does depend on obviously what you're playing, but generally speaking, as great as having dynamic offensive is, it's not a certain sort of hard mulligan for that card. Often we'll play this card on like turn 7. It's not a card that you have to play on turn 3. It can be very good to do so, depending on if you're playing in a slower match, but absolutely nothing wrong with playing that turn 7. What is important is to try and get a good curve. So often I will throw away like tactics and the strategy. I will keep. You want to keep units that aren't battlesuits. So if you've got a Vespid, you want to keep the Vespid, right? Because if you've got that in hand, that makes your dynamic offensive that much more consistent in terms of drawing suits. So you would keep that. I would keep the Honored Ethereal in hand, and I would keep the Stealth Drone in hand. So they're all examples of things that we don't want to be drawing off the dynamics. So you keep those. Probably keep one pulse onslaught, especially if you think you're going to be facing something that's a bit more, that's got, you know, a bit more aggro-y. I would definitely keep one pulse onslaught as well. And I always keep the emergency dispensation, so because it essentially is almost like as good as having a 3-drop, so I always keep that. And I'll tend to keep a crisis suit as well. Like if I've got a crisis suit, because again our lower curves not wonderful, so I'll tend to keep that. But everything else like these and stuff I'll chuck away. Definitely don't keep the 5-drops. The only 4-drops, do I keep the 4-drops? I actually would probably keep a bodyguard or a stealth battle suit, because again, if we can play on 3 and play on 4, then we're kind of rocking and rolling with this deck really. You know, the dream would be like stealth drone first turn, and then second turn into crisis suit, and then fourth turn into stealth battle suit, something like that. That would be a dream curve, but getting curve is really, really important with this deck. Alright, so let's jump into some games now that I want to show you that I've pinpointed. That was an Abaddon match. This one here is first, wasn't it? Okay, so the first one we've got is against Ghazghkull Mag Uruk Thraka. And what I'm going to do is talk through the thing and then fast forward a bit. So you can see here we keep the pulse onslaught and we keep one crisis bodyguard. Hopefully that's in line with what I've just said in the mulligan advice. And we draw into the fusillade.
We will not bring
Standard, we
ourselves
just heal
down to
ourselves
your
on the first
barbaric
turn.
level of warfare.
And then he's obviously going to go with... oh, he runs the Grot Tower. So he's actually going to go... you can always go with 3 grots there, or you can go with 2 grots that are buffed. He's gone with 2 grots that are buffed. Now this is the emergency dispensation, and as you can see, we've pulled 2 3-drops there, so we can pull out whichever one we want. By clearing with our Lord, we can obviously use the Vespid to take back the board. That's why I always keep emergency dispensation. I think it's such a good card.
Orkz is dead killing.
And this is generally a good card against Tau, especially if he's going up against the drone decks, but we're not running a drone deck. So we now, look at the value we got from the Vespid there, just fantastic. And then turn 4, we can even stop him from hitting that with the Warlord. Like, that's why we run that over the Ethereal. So he gets desperate and muckings about. It goes on the 50-50 and he loses it, so now he's so far behind. So we're actually going to put the Ethereal
With courage
over here.
and discipline, we shall stand victorious.
So we benefit from the heal, because there's no point putting him next to him because this guy gets blacked out anyway. So we're better off getting the heal. And notice what we did there as well, where we almost like play 1 energy behind curve. So we play on 5 energy, we played the Ethereal, and then we can get the little 1 ping, which is what you're using early on. You're just using the Ethereal Supreme. You're not necessarily using the Serene Unifier too early, because this is a tempo deck. We need to be playing our units down, right? So, but playing 1 behind curve like that, and then healing, reminds me a bit of Neurothrope. Is really, really powerful and helps us to build that tempo and kind of edge ahead of our opponent. Okay, so already we're getting desperate with the removals. So here you want to be, you've got 6, and you always want to be calculating your Aun'Va ability. So I always think it's 3 to 5 energy. So 3 is if I want the heal and shield, 4 is if I want the heal and armor, and 5 is if I want the heal and +2 range attack. So if we were to go for the minimum, which is the heal and shield, we could only then play a 3-drop. So we played the 3-drop. Now there's a choice of, did we go over here and get the extra health, or do we go over there to make Vanguard? We went with the Vanguard. Now, that one interesting point there is that this guy, being an Ethereal, gives you Serene Unifier. So what I just said there about 3 to 5, actually, if you don't need the heal, you can make it 2 to 4. And that's why we're able to get the armor version there, because we didn't have to actually play the 1 energy for the heal. So that's another really important thing when you've got the Honoured Ethereal down, is that you can actually get access to this guy's spells cheaper. Really, really key. So now we've got armoured up Vanguard units. Whistle Scarboy. So we see an opportunity to punish him here for the tempo, but obviously he's done it on turn 6, so it's a choice, like, do we do this and go in knowing that he's got Will of Gork, but we can punish the tempo player. The other thing, if we didn't do that, we wouldn't have played with Will of Gork as much, but we wouldn't be punishing his Whistle Scarboy, which is a lack of tempo. So what we've chosen to do is punish that and say, if you haven't got it, it's game over next turn, right? So you've got to have it, otherwise it's GG. But he has got it, so he will have got the board, but that's alright because it's cost him 7 energy, so he hasn't developed the board, and we get to be proactive, and that enables us to just drop the Riptide on 8 and say, okay, you've just will have got. We already saw him mucking about earlier when you did the 50-50, so what have you got? And he goes, well, I'm going to have to just throw down a load of Vanguard to try and block you, and we're going to make that really tough for you to get through Abaddon's nails. And we go, okay, we got a little combo for that. So we go combo, carry on tactics, into the Fusillade, and we'll also drop this and then heal. Beautiful turn. Costas hasn't got long strike, we're going to do 8 damage, 7 because of the armor, but we don't take any damage back. Start to put pressure on hitting with our Ethereal because he's so low now.
Boards go away.
And he goes, I've had enough. So that was a game where, you know, we didn't actually have the dynamic. You didn't get to see any of the flanking stuff there. But what you did get to see is just good solid play with tempo, and we were a bit lucky in terms of we did draw into you know, things like the AoE combo. So we were unlucky that we didn't get the flanking stuff, but we did get the AoE combo, and I think the deck's just pretty well designed in that way. So let's have a look next at so let's next have a look at these. Now I've got 3 games here that I could show you. One is a defeat, and I've had a bit of mixed feedback on some of the videos, and some people saying, well, do you ever lose games and do you want to show them? So I'm just going to show you this. There is something important about this game, and I really did reflect on it, and it's in the mulligan. So if you look at this mulligan here, right, we kept the Fusillade here, and we kept Emergency Dispensation. Now I think that was a mistake, keeping the Fusillade. And I know you might think it's a minor thing, but I honestly think the way this deck's designed, that extra card could really make the difference here. So I'm not sure why I kept it. I think it was a little bit of new to the Tau faction, against the Tau faction. I was thinking about drones, but we're not. You know, we're playing Shadowsun, so it's not exactly like it's drone point makes us.
You honor us with your presence.
And I think that's why I kept it, but it was a mistake. I shouldn't have kept it. And now if you look at this hand, we've been a bit punished because, and this is what I was telling you about in the deck guide version, look at this opening hand. So we drew a 5 and a 6 drop, and we could have had another shot at it with this by getting rid of that. And so, you know, we've actually got a really weak opening here. Plus, we're going second, so we have got the dude deal 2 damage, but in terms of tempo, he's going to get to play proactively first against us. Now, he doesn't do a right lot, but we can't do a right lot, so we
the Firecast will not tend to this challenge
all we can do is heal for
kindly.
1, and then he does it again on his second turn. So we could be getting major punished if he was actually playing out units here. We just wouldn't be able to do anything. But even just doing this, it's like we're still losing. We've got nothing again we can do. Now, obviously, I think we're going to go with it. Okay, we've gone with a dynamic offensive. And we're obviously just trying to set it up, thinking that we'll get a flanker, and we did get Riptide, which is great, but we also got this thing, so that's not too bad. We've drawn 2 flankers, but maybe we should have gone with Dispensation and tried to put some body down. Now we're behind, right, because he's got to develop the board first. So we're in removal mode. Which we are able to do with the nice use of the defense stratagem there to do that. then we can use our little heal that we talked about to kind of try and... this guy gets double the value, right, because he's got armor, so every time he gets one heal, that's good. Now he's gone into stealth suit. And just Marker lights this guy up. And again, this thing we were talking about, the difference between Shadowsun, his ability to Marker light things is real good. So we used our emergency dispensation to just basically find a cheap drop, try to build a board. Plus the Shadowsun ability to take that out. He can take this out, so he's still got the board. And then he uses the one spell to put that up to full power. So now we're in a lot of trouble. We've got nothing that can react to this. And he's just going to get a ton of value from it. Not a great turn from us, really. Rather than bring the flanker on, he actually chooses to develop the Vanguard. Takes 3 damage and just clears this. And his stealth suit, even though it's down to 1, is now hiding behind two Vanguards. So again, we're in a lot of trouble. We're want to get rid of that, so we use the Fusillade, but we can't really draw much. So we decide to just take this out and take a lot of damage, 5 damage, but bring the board back. So again, we're not getting ahead though at all on tempo. We're just having to react all the time. And this is why when I reviewed this game, I went all the way back to the mulligan, right? That we just mulliganed it correctly, and the importance of getting that early curve. Like, it's just so pivotal.
Launch protocols initiated.
So what we're trying to do here is, by putting out the blockers, we're trying to say, well, your Riptide's going to hit the blocker, going to have to hit a blocker, and then our Riptide can come on with flank. Yeah, that one's got flank. And that was the idea. But then what he's done is made use of having the advantage, the initiative, and so he's gone, okay, well, what I'll do is I'll just basically put my own flankers down. Not flankers, vanguards down. And now you can't get to my Riptide either. So we have to kind of like double down on our strategy, which is, okay, well, we'll work through your vanguards and we'll put even more vanguards down so that your Riptide can't hit us and has to hit the vanguards, and then we'll flank you with our Riptide. That's kind of like the thinking here. So then he just basically gets to kill that for free with his long range, which is devastating for us. And then he goes, well, alright, I'll double down on our thing and we'll put more Vanguard down. So you're still not getting to this guy with the two Vanguards down. And he uses, this again is Shadowsun's advantage, right? Just being able to go up to 3, clear these off, something that Aun'Va can't do. So now we're sitting here with like the most amazing flankers in the game. We still just can't get to what we need to get to. So we basically decide to use the Fusillade combo. Just try and clear off these units, but again that only leaves us with 5 health. Stealth drone. That'll be safe, and then basically next turn, when Longstrike or the Riptide comes on, that they'd be stealthed up again. But he cleverly again goes, okay, well I'm going to put a load of blockers out to stop you. So he's done such a good job in the way he's used his vanguards to protect this. Like, I think he's very aware that I'd played Nadir and I had flankers, and he's just done such a good job playing around them and defending. And at this stage, really, I've lost the game, because even with long strike, there's just no way to get through and deal with the units that I need to deal with. So I think lost, and I just resigned. So that is a loss that is worth sharing, because I think it like showed the importance of this deck and the need to kind of like really play for tempo. So we've got 2 more games we're going to look at. One is Abaddon, and I've got an awesome game with Barrick, who's a top 10 player, and he's playing a similar, a really similar deck. So we'll start with the Abaddon deck, Abaddon game. So as I said, I reviewed that loss and really thought about it. Let's see if I mulligan better. So with this time we get rid of the Fusillade, you see, and this looks very good, right? We've got the removal on from the first turn if we need it. We've then got the Crisis Suit, which is great against Abaddon because it's flying, and then we've also got our bodyguard, which, you know, like, you could throw that against Chaos, but I think after that last game I just thought, you know what, I'm not going to throw that away and get a Riptide. Like, I just want the tempo. It's not great against Chaos because Chaos can obviously just hit with Abaddon to get rid of the shield, and they've got lots of melee flankers that can just take that out.
You will embrace the Aun'Va or be destroyed.
This is a bit weak against Abaddon, but at least I've got the curve and the Tide Wall as well, so that might kill whatever's left that trades in. That's the thinking. Okay, so again, we're just gonna play very passive. Turn 1, he basically just hits me in the face and I think heals again. And then we drop the Crisis Suit. So he's a champion, but without any sort of buffs. So went first. And so then obviously just take the 3 damage there. And we just get rid of that. And we actually choose to go with the melee attack and use the Tile Wall gun rig. So the reason for that is we want to kind of like be on board. And obviously we're going to drop. Okay, we actually chose to go and heal that. We could have dropped the bodyguard and just protected it from that, but Traitor's Hate would have killed it. So instead of dropping the 4 drop, which we already said is a little bit weak against Chaos, this is a good example of leaning into Serene Unifier, like using up our stratagems and building a really big dude. It's a bit Tyranny-esque this, and we're going to stick a shield on him as well. So well, good luck dealing with that. Now, that play might not have been as obvious to you, because if we'd played the bodyguard, at first glance that looked good, right? Because it's like we develop the board, put him on the other side, he protects this guy who's only got 1 health. But we already said this is weak against Chaos. All he's got to do is like Abaddon hit this flanker, and then we're still left with it. Even if this guy's alive, he's just got a 1 health dude. Whereas by making the play that we did make, actually what's happened is we've ended up he's ended up with a much bigger problem, because he can't deal with flyers, especially an 8 health flyer. So it is really thinking about the matchup at times. He's got kind of a weak response to that. I imagine he's got all sorts of flankers spawned and all sorts of here. Now he's having to do this nonsense, right? And so now we've drawn the stealth suit. We can just put that on the other side of the bar. Remember, we're playing 1 behind curve, so we drop that and heal. Obviously make the trade, and then back up to 5 health. So this is looking really good, and you can just see the difference in the deck when we hit that tempo curve early. Now, this is a massive turn, right? This is a really big turn, and I thought this could like win or lose with the game. So what he's done is he's kind of gone all in here on he's gone all in on this guy. Now we end up going with the homing beacon and bringing this guy on. And the question is, what do we do here? So when you actually look at this, to get rid of this guy here is going to cost us everything. It's going to cost us everything. The whole board, the whole board, we've just spent all that tempo and all that edging ahead. And this is how good Venom is, Venom Crawler, when he's put all the stratagems on. And I figured I can either ignore, and if in certain parts of the game that might be the correct thing to do, is just ignore that and go in. But the problem is that next turn this problem is just going to get even more of a problem, and it's probably going to be Vanguarded up as well. So I can't continue to go back to ignore him and beat down Abaddon. And he's coming back on value, on tempo, sorry, because all these things are costing less. So there's a question of what do we do here? Do we just actually trade it all in? And then what does that mean for the game if we do? So we thought long and hard here. 10 with armour is a real problem. We can't even use the pulse onslaught on him because he's actually got the camouflage from the Dark Fate. So we can't even use the 3 extra damage that we could get from the pulse onslaught, and that's why it would mean literally trading everything in here. We can't get a shield. We don't have enough to get a shield. We need 3 energy for that. So really weighing all the options, and we end up trading. And this is really painful, guys, because we had such a good board, and in almost any position it's so dominant that we have to trade the whole board to get rid of that. And it's like, at this stage we're wondering whether that's going to cost us the game.
Your head.
So he now gets to be proactive, drop stuff on the curve. So we're going to get rid of this guy, because obviously killing this guy just makes this guy bigger, leads to like combos. So we choose to get rid of that guy first.
Dark gods,
This guy's got a shield.
bestow your gift upon me.
But obviously Abaddon can just attempt to get rid of it. Okay, so the good news is that this guy didn't get camo, I think. But now we're into turn 8, and this is where you're going to now start to get to see.
No foe can withstand the precise application of superior firepower.
Hit with Vespid, and then long strike can finish this off beautifully. And because he's got long range, we don't take any damage back. So he plays the Venom Crawler again into spawn them. Tries to hurt long strike. Now this is the point where, this point in the game, where we've got this massive unit on the board. By the way, we play that to draw, and we got a bit unlucky, you see. Now, we have drawn a Vespid, which is a battlesuit, but Vespid has flank. Like long strike isn't a battlesuit, but it has flank. So you can see how I've really thought hard about the deck building here. We have drawn Ethereal, which is the one non-flanking unit I'm kind of happy to see. It does give us, especially down to 17 health, it gives us options for flank card should we need it. But the other thing that you can do here is that now you've got a big unit down that's powerful. This is where it can often make sense to use Aun'Va's abilities and start to put, putting a shield on this guy here, obviously to trade is massive. So that's going to cost us 3 energy if we do that. So we just drop the Vespid, get the nice heal buff on both of them, and then we just basically take out the shield, Zephyr's Grace, and stick that on. Just a long strike, and trade it. Venom Crawler.
Wither is strength.
Now we look at the cards, we're quite a bit of an advantage in terms of our hand quality. And we can finally use that pulse onslaught. It's a nice trade there, 3 damage. Take that as well, because Chaos often have that Fate Dark Pact, so they have camouflage. So I'm going to take that while I've got it. And obviously setting this up really does allow us to start to take over the board again. But he plays the sword, so now as soon as that goes on, especially at this stage of the game, we're in a bit of a race. And this is where I'm kind of thinking about. I'm happy that Honoured Ethereal, for example, Crisis Battlesuit stuff. Sorry, Crisis Bodyguard there, and now we've got the Enforcer as well, so we've got to be flanking. So we decide to go with the Enforcer, and we take the Flanker as well. I think we just traded the Vespid at this stage. That thing's done insanely well. Yeah, so putting down some nice Vanguard units will make it really difficult for him to cut through.
I will see your blood flow. Blood for the
Thought he had double flanker then. Puts through. But obviously this guy's going to generate another flanker, which can come on and kill that because he's got flank 4. And then basically with Aun'Va's reach, this is what we talked about with Aun'Va's reach when Shadowsun was around. Although actually in this situation Shadowsun would be able to do 8 damage just. But we can basically give our guys a bonus to their range with Storm of Fire. And we have the Pulse Onslaught as well. So we have plenty of reach to just go ahead and win the game. Okay, last one is against Barrick. Now Barrick is running a very similar deck to us, but what he's trying to do is also make use of a little bit more of the Markerlight and a little bit more of the Companion. So he runs the thing that makes the drones 1 cheaper, and he also runs good mulligan choice there, you know, play for tempo. We don't keep the 5 drops. He also runs, what else does he run? He runs things like Pathfinders, so he's trying to make a bit more use of drones and marker lights, but he's still a suit heavy list. But it does mean
You will embrace the Tauva or be
slightly
destroyed.
less tight,
May we have no
stages
cause
as
for
we go.
conflict.
Alright, so we're going first this time. So again, pretty lame first turn, so that's always the way. Now we have got the Crisis Suit, so we've managed to hit a nice curve here.
We will deliver the king below.
And in response, he's also got a Crisis Suit, but because he is the defender, he's got the Guardian drone, which he's able to play as well. Takes his Crisis Suit and helps him to try and get ahead on tempo. So we drop the Crisis Bodysuit, Bodyguard, They trade each other. When you've got Tau versus Tau, it's often like, because they've obviously both got high flank and range damage,
Ready to engage.
they often have to trade and lose their own unit. Now this is worrying.
Activating stealth field.
Yeah, he had the perfect 3 into 4 Crisis Suit into Stealth Suit. So he had the better kind of better tempo. So we're having to get a bit creative here. So we've gone with the shield and the stealth. He then can play plays the Vanguard rather than playing the flanker. Very clever of him because there's often nothing to flank. So that's a much better play, and it sets up his flank next turn. Now we're just going to actually trade in that back down to 4. Just going to trade that in. But because we have the shield on, sorry, we don't trade it. I forgot to put the shield on, didn't we? That was why. Now we've only got 3. So it's not great at this stage, right? Like, I think he's definitely had the better kind of like tempo cards. Now he's just put his own shield on this guy. Basically get his own back on the Crisis, keeping him alive. Nice and healthy. His Lord can just trade it with this guy. And so, you know, despite going second, at this stage he's got the board, and he also sets up his 2 flankers. Or so he hoped. But remember, his synergy's not as good as us, so he might.
With courage and
crap out since
discipline,
then.
we shall stand victorious.
Now we're going to use the Kion tactics. This is a good example of what we talked about in the deck guide, that you've not got to be greedy. Sometimes you've got to just use it for a marker line when you need to make an important important trade. That was an important trade because that guy was basically keeping him ahead on tempo. So by making that trade now, sticking this guy down for shield, we feel like we are at least competing to get back on the initiative. And he's going to hit that just to get rid of the shield and take 3 damage in doing so. Ah, this was one of his flankers. Okay. But because he had shield, that gets him the kill pretty easily there. Now he has lost his shield, and of course our Riptide had flank from our DO, so that just goes to show you how amazing that is because you trade that in Lord. This guy's also got a shield as well. Is he going to attack in to get rid of the shield and the long strike? Sorry, long range. Yeah, he does. You know, Baron's a good player. He's a top 10 player. He knows what he's doing. Gets rid of that. So we go ahead and put the shield back on because we don't have long range anymore. But by putting the shield back on, this is where Aun'Va's insane. Like, let's put the shield back on. He might as well have the long range. And then, if you think about what happened in the last game, we're kind of doing that here now, where we've got the Riptide down. So now we're playing our Vanguards out to try and protect him. We're seeing like Aun'Va struggling. You know, last game Shadowsun could obviously clear those 3 guys. Aun'Va struggles with that a little bit. So he's setting up a big stealth vulnerabilities
and exploit them.
Because he knows he can't get to the Riptide this turn. So really in this situation we want to like try and push a little bit of damage now because we've kind of edged, kind of got this window of opportunity. So we're going to stick another Vanguard down as well. Notice I put that next to Aun'Va so that he gets the +1 health buff. And now we can smash the face for 8, which is really nice. And also drop the Crisis Suit. And I actually missed the shield there, I don't know if you saw that. But I actually missed the shield, so one of these should have shield on, so I kind of just ran out of time. Probably would have put it on this Crisis Suit, to be honest, which is in camouflage. Would have saved it. And people ask me, you know, would I drop a Riptide for long strike? No, and that's kind of why. Like, it's just too good on the flank. But I think running both of them and long strike is perfectly reasonable. Like, we don't have anything to build 8.
No foe can withstand the precise application of superior firepower.
Consistency. Really powerful controls. So now we can just drop the stealth drone, really showing the power of the stealth drone here. And then we heal the stealth drone as well, so it's immune to the fusillade on its own. That's why we put the stealth drone next to him and not long strike. So now he's got nothing to attack, so instead he just plays Vanguards. What does he put the shield on? Puts it on the big Vanguard. Okay. So I think we use the Fusillade here. That gets rid of the shield off of this. And then we just play the other Fusillade. And actually, because of the long range, we kill that. And we can just now chip away at the Ethereal. Heal again. And this time we can take the armor. I guess we should be attacking. Yeah. We should attack with the stealth drone here, but I'm not sure if I did. Don't think I did. I think we should have attacked there, to be honest.
It saddens me that we must take arms against you.
So he just gives up, basically, lets me, passes the turn and lets me kind of finish him. Bit of sportsmanship there from Barrick, so thank you for that. But yeah, I thought it was a really great game, like really, really close, and really showed off some of the kind of like more detailed tactics of the deck. So there we have it, guys. There we have it. Where are we? Aun'Va Battlesuit. So hopefully this video has really given you a sense of like how powerful this deck is. It's a lot of fun to play as well. Like I say, it doesn't make use of all the turn mechanics, which is why I'm looking forward to building some other decks for you that look at things like drones and look at Markalite more and look at Companion more. This is really quite themed but quite powerful. And I really am happy with this deck. I think it's very good. I think the synergy is really, really good in it. You're probably asking me which one's better, Shadowsun or Aun'Va. I'm going to stay on the fence there because I think what I've hopefully shown you in this video is some of the kind of nuances of that, which is that, well, sometimes Shadowsun's better and sometimes Aun'Va's better. So it depends on what it is that you're fighting. It's going to depend on like how the meta falls, what we're playing against, and how many people have the offense card. Like Aun'Va is not blown out by that, whereas Shadowsun gets a bit more blown out by the offense card. So yeah, there you have it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then you know, as usual, thanks to all of you who have subscribed, because I know a lot of you have subscribed now, and it's really helping. We're nearly 800 subscribers, so we appreciate it. If you've just dropped in for the first time, hey, why not hit subscribe? Tons of Warpforge content coming at you, and more town this month. So thanks for all that. Like the video, share it, and all that good stuff. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.